Why did you bring me here today, Jay? I was sleeping.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, Mike, we're here to talk about a film. It's a little bit different than what we normally do on a review. Normally we talk about something that we have a long history with, or we've seen a bunch of
Or
times.
something we like?
Or that we really like.
Yeah, why are we here? Why did you drag me here?
I don't know. We're talking about Event Horizon. I feel like you might be in the same boat as me, but I feel like my history with this film is similar to a lot of people's, which is I saw it a long time ago, and I remember it being pretty good. And I never saw it again.
Well, we're talking today because there is a newly released Blu-ray of this.
That's what kind of spurred the idea of watching it. Yeah,
released by Scream Factory, and none of these companies send us Blu-rays and say do a video on it, and we'll give you $5.
Yeah, it's never happened.
It's never happened. Mainly, this video will prove that because I have nothing but bad things to say about Event Horizon.
Really?
And I will say, well, not nothing. I have a couple good things to say, but my experience is completely different.
Oh.
Don't do this. And I watched Event Horizon, and I thought, ugh. And then I thought, oh, Jay wants to talk about Event Horizon. It's a newly restored 4K transfer from the fucking film print. I'm like, I think I should like this movie. It has all these elements in it that I really should like, and I watched it again. And now, it is time to go back.
I know.
And my opinion was identical to what it was over 20 years ago.
It's the perfect type of movie that should get a remake.
No.
Because it's a cool premise.
It's a terrible premise.
So you hate it to its core. This is interesting.
Literal. One, it's I think not the first film by Paul W.S. Anderson.
It's his third film.
Yeah, he made a famous movie in England called Shopping.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw that once, but I don't remember it.
Where they're like smashing cars into storefronts, and it got banned in Britain, and it was like, oh, and then I think this might have been his first like big American.
Well, no, before
feature.
this, what got him this job, he did the Mortal Kombat film. Which is a movie that people pretend to really love, even though it's awful. That's like total nostalgia. I liked it when I was a kid, so I still pretend to like it. It's okay to not like things you liked when you were a kid.
True. Okay, so yeah, this film contains every element of something that I love: science fiction, horror, neat, faster than light travel concepts, science fiction-y concepts, gateways to other dimensions. But I think when you put it all in the proverbial blender and put it into a movie, it just doesn't work. And I don't know if it's the direction. I think a lot of it is the characters. I just hate every character.
And I think that is probably contributed to the direction, because these are all talented actors in the movie.
Wait, I'm just going to stop you right here because I wrote down some. If I were a movie critic in 1997, I would have said these things. Like James Cameron's Aliens, but sucks. Like The Shining in space, but sucks. Like literally The Shining in space.
Yes.
Hopeless, miserable, dark, depressing, unexciting, morbid, and dull.
That's what's they put on the poster.
Yes, those are all your like one-word critic. Variety says dull.
I do believe it was critically banned when it came out. I don't.
Think
it
was a big flop.
I don't remember reading the reviews, but I don't think it did very well.
It was a big flop.
It's one of those movies that it kind of flops in the theaters. I don't know if it played on cable. I don't know how people, because it has this reputation of being like, oh, I remember seeing that, and I remember it being pretty good. So I don't know where people saw it, because I don't think it did well in the theaters. So maybe it was on cable a lot.
Why someone would have a good memory of it.
I did. And there's still a lot I like about it. I'm not nearly as negative about it as you are, but I think when we're talking about what doesn't work, I think a lot of it comes down to the direction. It's Paul W.S. Anderson's best movie, which isn't saying much, but I think he is the problem. Because the characters, you have characters from different movies all in this one movie. The Cooper character starts out kind of like a normal human being, but as it goes along, he feels like someone that dropped in from a Michael Bay movie.
Yes.
Michael Bay loves his sassy black side characters for some reason, and that character is right out of one of those movies.
To the point of him being like an embarrassing stereotype.
Mm-hmm. Look, you can kiss my ass, Smith, because I'm done.
Speaking of Cooper, it's good to know that workplace sexual harassment is still well and alive in 2047.
It's worse than ever.
What about you, Stark? Would you like something hot and black inside you? Is that an offer?
It is not.
Yeah.
Well, things kind of go in waves, so it probably went away for a little while. By the time we get to 2040, it'll be back.
Then it was okay to tell your female colleague, you want something hot and black inside you?
Yeah. See, so you have stuff like that that's in complete contrast of the more...
That's the 90s.
Well, that's the thing that's frustrating to me about this movie, is that the stuff that I like about it is the more atmospheric, kind of them wandering around the ship. I like the production design of everything. It's a little ridiculous, but it's cool.
That's what I don't like.
Oh my Lord!
And this is, I think this is where we differ, because you have their little rescue ship, right? It's called the Lewis and Clark.
Yes. Which has no thematic connection to the real Lewis and Clark, other than they both went on an expedition.
Event Horizon makes sense because that's the outer part of a black hole. Mm-hmm. But real quick, the premise of the movie is there's a spaceship called the Event Horizon, and it has developed a way to travel faster than light. And these are all the things that I like. This is basically sort of like a warp drive. Sam Neill takes a pinup, a non-pornographic pinup of naked ladies stuck to the wall in a workplace environment. And he says, you fold space-time. And
puts a pencil
through it and unfolds.
Christopher Nolan completely ripped it off for Interstellar. It's the exact same explanation.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan, I understand, is a big fan of Paul W.S. Anderson.
Right. For those of you who don't understand, you can't go faster than the speed of light, according to Einstein's theory of relativity. Time stops when you hit the speed of light. Mm-hmm. So, in the universe exists something called time-space. And it's basically like a fabric, right? You can't go faster than the speed of light, so what you have to do is warp the fabric of space-time. You never go faster, like the Star Trek Enterprise, that spaceship in the show Star Wars, the Star Trek Enterprise never goes faster from one end of the other. So he says, we're going to Proxima Centauri, and we're going to fold time and space, but he accidentally opens a gateway to Hellraiser.
Specifically Hellraiser, not Hell, Hellraiser.
We have such sights to show you.
Let me show you.
Right, it's something that's worse than hell, and it's another dimension.
Yes. This is when it gets a little Lovecraftian.
Yeah.
We got Lovecraft, we got Hellraiser, a little bit of Alien.
Right, and I get the, see the thing is, like, the Lewis and Clark looks like a grungy, disgusting, weird spaceship. And then when you get on the Event Horizon, it's like Art Deco H.R. Geiger painting. And I totally get the decision. Mm-hmm. If you're making a horror movie in space, the ship should be scary. And that's like the logic.
Sure.
But to me, it was like confusing of who was on what ship.
But there's a little more to it than that. Oh, I see. I love the production design of it. I think it's perfect for this type of movie. But it's more than just that it's grungy and Giger-like. Like, apparently they based it on, because there's obviously kind of a little bit of religious themes in the movie, and they based it on the Notre Dame Cathedral.
Okay, like a church cathedral?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that's why it has that long part in the middle. It's supposed to be like the hallway, and then the
altar.
The cheese grater tunnel.
Looks like a meat grinder to me.
The rotating spherical thing.
Okay.
The Professor X Cerebro room,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
That has giant spikes
Yeah.
for no reason,
And
which nobody gets impaled on.
Doesn't that lady?
She falls and she hits the ground and blood splatters everywhere, but she doesn't get impaled on one of those spikes.
Oh.
That seems like a missed opportunity.
It really does.
That might be a deleted scene. Yeah. This is apparently notoriously this movie was cut down a lot, but
Release the Anderson cut?
they can't though, and that's a whole other story we can get into.
Oh, well, I'm glad you did some research on
I did a
this.
little bit of research because I was curious.
did zero.
You finished the movie. I guess that's an
rewatched the
accomplishment,
movie.
right? But the thrusters are like the towers of the Notre Dame Cathedral turned kind of sideways.
Okay.
So this is a little bit of religious imagery, a little more to it than just trying to make it look grungy and scary.
Well, spoiler alert. Was Sam Neill like a weird satanic worshiper, or did he get co-opted by the evil forces? I know he was somehow maybe trying to bring his dead wife back to life.
He was
know.
hung up on that. I think the implication, and maybe this was lost in trimming the movie down, I think the implication was that he was on the ship originally. Because he says, like, I'm already home at one point. And I don't know the details of how he ended up back on Earth, but the implication to me is that he's already gone through the wormhole or gone through the black hole, and that's why he's all...
Well, wouldn't it have been a neat part if they saw him in like the crew log footage?
That would have been cool.
Like he's in the background, they freeze frame it, and he's like...
Yeah.
You'd think he would have been on the maiden voyage.
It treats it as if he was, and that's why he's
designer of the
crazy
ship.
now.
Yeah.
So it's a little murky there, yeah. But that when they're looking at the crew footage, that leads to one of my favorite unintentional laughs of the movie. They're seeing all these horrific images. The captain pulls his eyeballs out. And he's holding them up to the camera, and the comedic timing of Lawrence Fishburne shutting off the tape and just going, "We're leaving."
Yeah.
We're leaving.
I wrote that down in my notes actually. Oh yeah, that's not unintentional. I think that was.
Would you think that one was intentional? There's some
yeah.
stuff in this movie that I wasn't sure about.
It was sort of like connecting with the audience. Like, yeah, we're leaving.
Okay.
Like I laughed out loud, and I'm sure most people did. I think it was intentional.
All right.
The unintentional.
Well, in that case, points to them for the intentional comedy in that moment.
Right. I laughed at the unintentional comedy. Several sound effects. Like
by the end
Warner
of the
Brothers
movie,
sound effects.
by the end of the movie, it's like the whoever was mixing the audio just gave up. Because that fight scene with Sam Neill at the end,
Yes.
those stock punch sound effects,
There's
and they're
that.
it's not just that they're stock sound effects; it's that they're like right in the forefront of the soundtrack. They're so comedic sounding.
Well, and like the part where Sam Neill, he's gouged out his own eyes, and he has the space nail gun. I don't know what to call it. And he shoots it through the window, and then the space vacuum starts sucking everything out the window, and like all the props that are flying around, and I just picture woo, zip, zoom, like wacky sound effects, because it kind of looks funny.
Yeah, it's weird because the first half of the movie really takes its time. It has stuff that doesn't work, but it's more atmospheric, and it's kind of building that tension. And then at a certain point, I think it's right around the point when the Cooper character, he's launched off into space, and he's like, I gotta get back to the ship. I'm saying all these things out loud so the audience understands what's happening.
Think. All right, I gotta get back to the ship. All right. I gotta blow my air tank. I'll blow my air tank.
He goes, oh damn! How do I keep finding myself in these situations?
Yeah, and it's like the movie just gave up.
Shit! Where the fuck am I going? Why is this shit gonna happen to me? Fuck.
It's really weird. Because I like a lot of the stuff leading up to that, and then tonally it goes off the rails at that point.
That guy Cooper should have died 10 times over.
That is not the character that makes it to the end of the movie. It's a really weird decision.
Well, he's like, I'm gonna blow all my oxygen out of my, like, the movie is fairly like scientifically accurate to its best ability at that point, but then he's like flying through space towards Neptune in a little spacesuit, like hoping that he can make it back to the event horizon, which I think was in the atmosphere. Like, how the fuck?
Yeah, because when he starts shooting back towards it, it's nowhere in sight, so it's that far away.
I think it was like in the upper atmosphere, and like, how the fuck is he gonna accomplish that?
And I think they had to put it in the atmosphere so they could get away with spooky lightning storm. Because that was something I was thinking about. I was like, you don't have lightning in space, but I guess technically they're in the atmosphere.
Right.
So that's fine. They justified that. But yeah, him shooting back. I know that happens in Gravity, right? But she's using a fire extinguisher to kind of shoot herself around.
Yeah, and it's like, that's the point of the movie Gravity, is that they're flying around trying to figure out problems. Like in this situation, this like nightmarish horror movie, and then you come up with this like almost Looney Tunes-esque logic of him flying around.
And on top of that, his performance, where he's like, I'm coming back, motherfuckers!
Oh, yeah, it's cringy.
Here I come, motherfuckers!
It's weird. It's completely at odds with the nightmare hellscape vision stuff.
Yeah.
Which is the stuff I like. So I don't know. It's all over the place. It's an interesting movie.
I think the nightmarish hell kind of gross out stuff, like whatever character was disemboweled and all his guts are dumped out. Was it Jason Isaacs that happened to?
Yeah.
Like, I know that's your thing. You like gross, like horror movie stuff.
It's not that it's gross. It's a striking visual.
There were some like legitimately. I think the best scene in the movie is when Justin, Baby Bear, they call him Baby Bear.
Oh, yeah.
The actor's name is Jack Noseworthy.
Jack Noseworthy.
Who
was in some stuff in the 90s, and I guess he completely vanished.
Yeah, he was on a show called Dead at 21.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Do you remember that?
And the MTV show.
Yeah, and I used to laugh because I would call him Jack Earworthy or Jack Lipworthy. The man has a fairly undistinguishable nose.
That's true.
But his name is Jack Noseworthy. And so I always thought that was funny. And then I didn't hear about him after Event Horizon.
Yeah.
But that part where he's like possessed or traumatized or I don't know what the hell, scared by hell, and he goes into the room, the going out into space room.
Yeah.
And then he realizes, oh my God, and then they depressurizes and they have to rescue, Lawrence Fishburne has to fly in and rescue him.
Yeah.
And it's like blood is like shooting out of his mouth and his eyes, and like that part was legitimately well done, intense, and.
But no, I like that sequence for the most part.
There was like a legitimate like real world / horror world interaction. Like that character was doing something under the possession or spell of this evil that he didn't know he was doing, and then he snapped out of it at the last second. And then it's like, oh, those two things work together.
Yeah.
He put himself in the airlock and is going to kill himself because he's so scared of this nightmare land. And then he realizes, like, what the fuck am I doing in here? Help me. And he's like, help me.
What is going to happen to me because of the cold vacuum of space is horrific.
Yes. But then the other things where it's like, oh, you know, spooky images. Lady's son.
Oh, I like that too. She felt guilty. She had to leave her son behind with her, I guess, estranged husband. She calls her her ex-husband, right?
They'll have
and he's in a wheelchair, and so she sees visions of him where his legs are all fucked up. Like it's like a haunted house movie in space, which contrasts something like Alien, which is more realistic, where like
monster movie.
Yeah, it's a monster. That's a monster movie in space. This one is like a weird kind of clash between like science fiction, real like science, and supernatural stuff, and I don't know, that interests me.
It's oil and water, those two things.
But that's what drives them mad. These are scientists that are now dealing with these.
But they're not scientists. They're EMT people.
Okay, that's true.
I'm your best friend, okay? I'm the lifesaver and the heartbreaker.
He's a rescue technician. This is Peters, medical technician, and my pilot, Mr. Smith.
I'm trying to think of a movie that compares Hellraiser in space.
It is a better Hellraiser in space movie than the real Hellraiser in space movie.
Space is scary enough. I think that's why the airlock scene is so memorable to me.
You understand what happens when
and
that airlock
and it was
opens.
like frightening.
Yeah.
Because just the reality of it. And then that kind of stuff was completely, deflated when Cooper's flying around in a jetpack towards Neptune in the middle of the fucking solar system.
All the stuff with him.
Probably
and then
die from radiation from fucking Neptune.
When Sam Neill's eyes are plucked out and he suddenly looks like a Cenobite, and Cooper's coming back towards the ship and he hits the glass, he's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, he just happens to land right outside the front window of this gigantic spaceship.
And then his reaction too is like, I don't know. It's the Paul W.S. Anderson schlock.
Yeah, which carries on to all those Resident Evil movies and all that kind of stuff.
This is borderline experimental.
This makes no sense at all.
Which is why I mentioned earlier there's apparently a longer cut of this movie that was more horrific. It was like 30 minutes longer. That part in the end when Sam Neill's like, let me show you these visions or whatever, and there's all those quick flashes. Apparently all that stuff was more drawn out. You saw more of it, and they had to cut it out to get an R rating. So people talked about like, oh, if that stuff was back in, it'd be a better movie. It's like, no, you still have that Cooper character that's out of place. You have all these weird tonally inconsistent things. I don't think more gore wouldn't save the movie.
No, and it wouldn't make it scarier conceptually to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I described it as The Shining in space, one part in particular, the blood part. But also this abandoned haunted ship is similar to the hotel, and there's the visions, nightmarish visions, and Sam Neill character is very similar to the Jack Torrance character.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of similarities, but I think when your horror is grounded in our own reality that we could relate to, hell and spaceships just don't work.
Oh, see, that's the stuff that did work for me.
I can't describe
the idea of again going back to The Shining, where it's like all these horrific things happening in this hotel, but a part of is thinking about the fact, they have the excuse in the movie why they can't leave because there's a storm or whatever, but it's like, oh, they could conceivably get out of there. When you're in space, you have nowhere to go.
I think it's just our tastes.
Sure. We can both agree that the movie's not scary though.
Oh, okay. Good. You weren't under your blanket going like this?
No.
Okay,
I'm talking about conceptual. That's why I say it would be a perfect movie for a remake, because there's a lot of the concept stuff I think is interesting. It's just the Paul W.S. Anderson schlocky execution that really kind of ruins it.
I don't know if I would have executed it differently. I was trying to think if the spaceship wasn't designed so, if it just looked like a regular spaceship.
Yeah.
And
if the contrast would be more.
That juxtaposition would make it creepy.
Well, I believe the original idea for the room with the black hole, what do they call it in the movie? It has a name.
We'll call it the warp engine.
Something engine, they call it. Gravity.
Quantum singularity. The quantum singularity is another name for a black hole.
Right.
I don't know what they call it.
But that room, I guess, the original idea was to make it more kind of minimal, almost like 2001-like, and the black hole is always open, and that's what fuels the ship. And I think partially for budgetary reasons, but also to try and make it look spookier, they made it into the more.
Yeah, it looks like a medieval torture device.
Yeah, they kind of went in a different direction, partially for budget, but also I think because they're like, well, we got to make it look like a horror movie.
Exactly, and that's the big gamble.
Yeah,
is like, yeah, okay, the warp core device looks like a medieval torture it looks like a medieval weapon or something.
And the hallway leading to it is this spirally, spiky nightmare.
Yeah, and it looks like a funhouse corridor, and yes, it looks spooky.
They gave a scientific reason for why that is there, though. It has something to do with the gravitational pull, or
whatever. Yeah,
they give some gobbledygook as to what it is.
But we're talking like production design speaking.
Sure.
Like, do you make it look like a regular spaceship, and you roll the dice that people will be scared by the theoretical stuff. The black hole leads you to an alternate dimension that's filled with nightmares and hell. Is that scary enough, or do you double down and add extra scary on top of scary and make your spaceship look like a horror movie? See, that's why I thought from the beginning Sam Neill was a Satan worshiper who created the spaceship because he secretly theorized that he could open a gateway to hell, and he wanted to do it almost like the building in Ghostbusters designed by...
not Vigo. That's the second movie. I wanted to say Vigo the Carpathian.
Who is the architect?
The architect's name was Ivo Shandor. I found it in Tobin's Spirit Guide.
Ivan Shandor.
Ivan Shandor. Good job, Jay.
I did it.
Everyone out there give Jay a round of applause.
Thank you.
Ivo. Is it Ivo Shandor? No.
The architect's name was Ivo Shandor.
Ivan Shandor. Ivan Shandor.
Ivo Shandor.
Something Shandor.
Yeah. Like a weirdo name, right?
Yeah.
He designed the building to be a lightning rod to open the dimension once Zool is ready to...
Right. And people won't know what he's up to because it just looks like a building.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I thought the spaceship, Event Horizon, looked so creepy, and it has fucking Roman numerals above the warp engine. But I don't know, other than Roman numerals are old.
Which has no place on a spaceship.
And why is who's speaking, someone was speaking Latin, demon?
That was something I wanted to bring up, is they're playing back the recording.
Yeah.
They're like, we have this recording of the crew, the Event Horizon. We can't figure out what it means. And it's like they had a whole team of scientists and researchers all looking. None of them could figure it out. Then this one crew member's like, "Oh, it's just Latin."
Well, Latin's
nobody knew. It was like somebody in this team of scientists and people on Earth.
Well, they probably could have used a computer to scan it, and the computer would probably figure it out. But Latin's an old language; it's a dead language.
Well, sure.
People know it. But my question is, why is the demon from an alternate dimension speaking Latin?
Because it's spooky.
Language from Earth. Yeah, Latin is spooky. It's in all the horror movies because it's ancient.
Right.
And it's biblical times, language that's a dead language. So when, someone who's possessed by a demon speaks Latin, nobody fucking knows Latin. Some people do. Really smart people learn dead languages and speak them, but some possessed 12-year-old girl isn't going to know fluent Latin. That's certainly then a demon speaking through her, right? Because that's spooky. So why is a demon from an alternate dimension speaking Latin? I don't know. Because is it really the hell from biblical hell that exists? We don't know. A lot of unanswered questions, Jay. Like, why did they make this movie?
We're leaving.
I really like the design idea to line the connecting tunnel that separates the warp drive part of the ship from the crew part of the ship with explosives.
Not only that, but big signs on them that say explosives.
Like, couldn't they just decouple it? How trains have those
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they go like this.
Or the idea, if you have to detach, you can detach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just hit a button and it
But that's the Paul W.S. Anderson action schlock, where it's like that's the decision being made. is to make it, because then you could have a big explosion.
Oh yeah, I know why they're there, Jay.
Which is interesting.
I know why those bombs are there.
Between the explosion and then Lawrence Fishburne's character has has this fear of a crew member that he left behind to burn alive.
Yeah.
And that's kind of his fear. That's what's haunting him throughout the film. So there's lots of fire-related stuff, and which is interesting that the shape of the ship or the design of the ship was based on Notre Dame, because there famously was a fire a couple years ago in Notre Dame.
That's true. Are you saying the movie caused that fire?
I'm saying it's the movie is one of those what they call a cursed film.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you think someone like was playing the movie like in Notre Dame,
Yes.
like while they were doing the construction, and the DVD sparked and caused the Notre Dame fire?
I'm saying that's exactly what happened.
That would take your theory a little step further. I was watching Event Horizon, and it burned down the fucking cathedral. That's my French accent.
Okay.
I guess it.
Is that what that was?
Watching the
I thought you were doing
DVD.
Italian for some reason.
I tend to stray towards Italian. I was just watching the DVD of the Event Horizon, the worst film I've ever seen. And the DVD player started on fucking fire because it's 100 years old. I got the disc at a thrift store for a cent. A French cent. Then the fire spread to Paul W.S. Anderson's house in Los Angeles. I don't know how this happened.
Did I conclude talking about the missing footage? It's kind of interesting.
No.
So the footage was cut to get an R rating, and apparently it was being stored in a Romanian salt mine. All the original footage that was cut. Because that's like in Day of the Dead, they have those salt mines underground, and they talk about storing old film prints.
Yeah, George Lucas stores his negatives in salt.
It's
mine.
a thing.
Salt absorbs moisture.
Yeah.
So
for whatever reason, it was in a salt mine in Romania.
Okay.
Or I think Paul W. Sanderson says it's in Transylvania, but whatever.
Because it's spooky?
Because it sounds spookier? I don't know. He doesn't talk about this as if it's a spooky thing. But that's where apparently all the stuff that was cut for the movie, or maybe even the original negative, was stored, and it wasn't stored properly, and it all just deteriorated. So it doesn't even exist anymore. So even if you wanted to do a extended cut, release the Anderson cut, the material just doesn't exist anymore.
That's just the horror stuff, or just everything?
I think it's just everything that was cut,
So
which was primarily the more horrific stuff, the gore.
So not the original camera negatives.
I guess. I mean, there's the negative that they scanned the new print from, so
Right.
it must just be the cut material. I don't know.
You know what that sounds like to me, Jay? It starts with bull,
Oh.
and it ends with it.
You think he just went to the studio and said, I want to do an extended cut? And they said, that doesn't exist anymore. And then he made up the Transylvania part?
I think they told him that.
They told him that.
We put it in a Transylvanian salt mine.
We were storing it in the Notre Dame Cathedral, and it caught on fire.
Dracula's watching over it, Paul. Oh, he is? He's taking real good care of it. So yeah, Event Horizon.
I don't know if some people look back on it, like we mentioned Mortal Kombat, and how people like that movie now, and it's just because it's pure nostalgia and it's like complete 90s, dated 90s schlock.
Yeah.
And there's elements of that in this, but not enough where the movie's just like really funny.
No.
Or really like entertaining because it's dated. It's like a weird, it falls between the cracks. It's not enough of that. It's not enough of the genuinely kind of atmospheric stuff, which I think is there and I like. But that's completely counterbalanced with Cooper floating through space.
Yeah.
Saying, I'm coming, motherfuckers.
Yeah, splash here and there of bad decisions and like cringy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I don't know, maybe like someone who's a little bit younger than us may have seen this when they were younger. ish.
And we're creeped out by
and
some
we're
of the.
creeped out, and it kind of sticks with them.
Yeah.
Kind of like me and Rowhead Rex. One might not find Rowhead Rex particularly scary today. But I have fond memories of watching it on TV and being scared as a little kid. I don't know. And that, and of course, but I can recognize today that Rowhead Rex is silly. And so I don't know. I have not heard anything online or do these people exist that have nostalgia for Event Horizon?
I think people like it, but like I said at the beginning, I think people like it because they remember seeing it a long time ago and remember it being creepy.
And we're here to tell them they're wrong.
We're here to tell them that they're wrong. I think conceptually, I think it's an interesting idea, and I think the movie would have been great if it wasn't for the movie. It's one of those.
Yeah.
There's a lot I like, but I can't fully recommend it because it doesn't work as a serious horror movie or as dated, funny 90s movie.
No.
It's sort of like an interesting anomaly. I guess it's almost worth seeing for that, in my opinion. It's something that doesn't really work, but has a lot of interesting ideas, has a lot of things that are interesting because they fail so badly. Mm-hmm. You get the dated 90s techno music at the end
Just
credits.
at the very end.
At the opening credits, kind of, and then at the very end.
This is my closing statement. It's got a lot of things that I should like. The space-time, black hole, science fiction, horror kind of stuff. I do like horror movies, not as much as you, but I do like them. That kind of creepy idea of, I like my ghosts and my demons and my hauntings. I love haunted. I love gothic horror.
This is a little more grungy than that. It's not that classy.
No.
This is more about madness, which is kind of more my interests. Sam Neill, right around the same time he did In the Mouth of Madness, the John Carpenter movie, a much better film about going crazy.
Right.
But it has that element, which again is the kind of Lovecraft thing of seeing things beyond that the human mind can comprehend.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I like all that stuff. I just think all the elements put together don't work. It could be their choice of what characters to have in the film and why. Why, like they were search and rescue people. It could have been the situation in Alien where they're space truckers who are diverted off course to go do a thing that they're not usually meant to do.
Yeah.
Maybe throw a religious character, a chaplain, aboard the ship who has a special insight into hell, and I don't know.
I think it would have benefited from more. There's like some very minor kind of religious stuff in this. Like it could have used more of that.
Yeah, but all the characters were like the Space Marines, where they were all basically the same character. They were all like EMT or medical related personnel. Mm-hmm. So they didn't have a array of different types of people that horror affects differently.
Yeah, a diversity of motivation.
Right. You have your cynic, you have your religious chaplain, you have, like a kid, throw a kid on there.
No, don't throw a kid on there.
Like a doctor.
Keep kids out of horror movies.
A kid with a skateboard and a sideways baseball
cap
who keeps saying 90s phrases. When are they going to cancel Bart Simpson for saying "ay caramba"? I mean, clearly that's cultural appropriation.
Ay caramba.
Anyway, don't watch Event Horizon. I don't know why we're here. Don't know what we're doing here. We've shucked the format of review, Jay.
Hey, that's kind of fun sometimes, though. Go back and revisit something and just see,
See what happens.
See what happens.
See what happens.
This is a movie that I feel is stuck around and has a following. So it's like, it's not a completely.
Charles Manson.
It's not a completely forgotten movie. So.
Okay, yeah. I mean, okay. Yeah.
Why not?
Sure, why not? I mean, the Blu-ray looks nice.
We're on year one of the pandemic. Why not? Just do whatever.
We started year 2 of the pandemic.
We've started year 2. That's what I mean. Yeah,
There's
we finished year
5
1.
more years to go.
Okay.
Yeah. So
shake things up.
What better time to watch Event Horizon?